Hello, my dears. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have for you another installment of the Sketch It Up, Sketch It Down series with my friend Suzanna Lee. We provide a sketch and each of us interprets it in a different size. I made the sketch for this month and I'm going to be making a 9 by 12 layout. I'll be using my Color Cast Designs goodies from the April release. There's this set of little Polaroids, then and now. Plus I pulled out the heart set, the confetti set, and some words. I think she does hearts and confettis in whatever colorways the rest of the release is for that month. I love these warmer toned colors, and I knew that they would work perfectly with a line that I just picked up recently from Dear Lizzy called It's All Good. So I have to confess, I made my sketch knowing what products I was going to use for this one. And one of the things I put on the sketch is circles behind the main cluster of the photos and layers. So for this one, I wanted to use this stencil that looks like pebbles, and I don't exactly know where it came from. I think it's Ali Edwards, or it might be Studio Calico. It's quite old. I'm bringing out the whipped spackle for the second time in like a week. And I'm going to use an old gift card to spread the spackle through the holes there. I flipped the stencil around a bit to vary where the placement of the different sizes of the pebbles are. I also made sure that the last swipes were done horizontally so I can have the texture of lines, little valleys or grooves horizontally across all three little sections. Once I get all the spackle on, it's easy to remove anything that I don't want with my finger, and then I put it aside to dry naturally. I pulled another sheet of paper to build the layers on. The frames are 2 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall, and the inner portion is 1.5 inches square. So I printed my photos at about 1.5 inches square, and when I cut it, I left a little bit of a border so that I could stick them on. In a previous video where I used one of the other acrylics that came from this release, it was a lighter off-white, even lighter than the lightest frame here. And I took off the backing, I put it on top of a photo, and I sort of regretted taking the backing off because then it didn't stand out as much. However, I have had in the past where the backings won't stay on very well. But these frames and the other piece I'm going to use, the backing seemed very solidly on, so I left it on. That way, all the acrylics can stand out better from the background. Let's fast forward. You already saw me put 2 frames on. I did decide to butt the frames up against each other, no spacing in between. I thought it would look weird if there was any spacing. I'm going to put a layer of tissue paper, and I went off camera to cut it on my big Caterpillar Pro. I wanted to make sure I cut it straight. When I got this Dear Lizzy collection, I couldn't get everything, and I think there's a paper that looks like this aqua one with the geometric lines. So instead, I used the packaging from the ephemera pack. I cut strips down so I could save some for later, and I put it on the sides of the frame column. At first, I tilted it so it was almost wedge-like, and then I cut some paper from this orange and daisy paper, a couple strips to put on either side, again, just to conserve paper. And I didn't like how they stuck out with the previous paper, the aqua one, in a wedge, so I ended up straightening that out later. One of the cut apart sheets had a long strip with stripes of different colors, all the colors in the collection. So I decided to use that in here as well to add more interest in color. Just cut some little lengths to go on the top and bottom only. I really wanted this to be slightly more minimalistic layout than I usually do. I don't know if I succeeded in that, but that was what I was going for. So just little peaks of layers behind the photos. And you see I took it apart to adjust the aqua one and adjust all the little pieces again. I trimmed the one with the rainbow stripes so that they were a little shorter than the total width of all the other layers, and they ended in a color that contrasted the most with that side of the layers. Now I can put it back on the dry background, and I was considering some more layers, but I decided let's just stop there. I pulled out a few things that were also the driving force behind this layout, that celebrate acrylic and the group of balloons. They match the frames, and that led me to pull out photos of my daughter at 3 different birthdays. But before I put anything on, I want to add interest to the background. I chose to do splatters first, and I pulled out 2 colors, the gold Heidi Shine and a blue, which is a mixture. I don't even know what it is exactly. I thought about adding the blue to bring out more of those tones, but I wanted to wait to see where they would be the most effective. So I only do the gold for now. I went away and let it dry naturally. Again, I really do not like using my heat gun if I can avoid it because it does end up warping. My photo layers felt a little bit sparse to me still, so I decided to add just a bit more of texture with tissue paper, and I actually nestle them in the blank area. So you just see some white on white, just a little bit more texture. Now it was sticking out a little more than I like, covering up a lot of the mixed media I did. I'll use my fingernail to try to fold it in a little bit more. Placing the balloons was a little tricky because I wanted to have the balloons coming out from the background, and yet I didn't want to cover up all the streamers and the little tiny bow that keeps them together. So I fiddled with it quite a bit, up and down, side to side. I do use some foam to prop them up because I wanted them to be a layer higher than the background stenciled circles. Even with the foam, I was able to tuck them in the corner under the photos and gave me the exact look I wanted. Although at this moment they're a little bit higher than I want, and I'll be bringing them down. To build up the title area, one of the first things I looked at was this little ticket. I wanted to bring, again, like I said, the blue tones over. And I wanted to have a cluster right there on that corner on top of the mixed media that got cut off on the side because it looks like all that is coming in towards the page. But I was struggling because it covered a lot of my circles, and I didn't like that. So I moved things around a bit. Now, a word about the other acrylics, the small confetti. Originally, I was going to use that confetti, sprinkling it up and down, but I found that the photos are an acrylic and the title is an acrylic. Those are all a certain depth. And if I put more acrylics around the page, they were that same thickness, plus made out of the same material. And I felt like it was going to call attention from the 2 main items, the photos and the title. So I will not use any of the confetti acrylic. You saw I went back to the sticker sheet and found this banner, which is super cute, and of course in keeping with the birthday theme. And I liked that whole phrase, but I really only wanted to use the "you" part of it to pair up with my acrylic, so I ended up cutting it out. It kind of hurt to do that, but I did it. At this point, I start getting some adhesive on. I used mostly score tape on this layout, except for on the papers, I used mostly the dot liner. And as I'm doing this, I sort of decide that the ticket's not going to stay there, and I wasn't sure about the little ribbon that's off to the right. And you're going to see that my video is going to cut off. And I was so mad. There were expletives going like crazy. Grr! This makes me so mad. I couldn't put my phone on airplane mode because I was expecting either a call or text from both my daughters to pick them up. But I knew I had plenty of time. However, another phone call came in and I didn't even realize it, and it cut off my video. That's the hazard of actually making a layout during the day instead of the middle of the night, which is when I'm usually doing it. I ended up doing more splatters and I put in sequins. I also spilled all my sequins, so maybe it was okay that you missed that part. Anyway, for the rest of the layout, I was just really flustered and I felt rushed, and I was worried that the phone was going to ring again, and I don't know. I just wasn't feeling great about the layout anymore. But as the Brits would say, I soldiered on. There wasn't much left after this. Let's see. So right now I'm trying to figure out what to do with the right hand side. Originally I had the ribbon down at the bottom corner, and when I splattered up in the middle of the right hand side, It didn't come out the way I would have liked, so I wanted to cover that instead. I considered moving the ribbon up, didn't like that. Oh, right here, I remembered this border of balloons, and I would have loved to add it to the top or bottom, but I decided, nope, the sketch doesn't have that. Let me try to keep everything centered. In my quest for something for the right-hand side, I looked at several little tickets in the collection. I wanted something pink. I didn't want the green because we don't have green anywhere. The yellow was the wrong tone, and so what I ended up doing is going back to the papers. The cut-aparts had different little areas, and I found pink that I like on one little cut-apart that I knew I wasn't going to use or I could cut down. So I used my We Are Mary Keepers tab punch to cut the tab out. That's sort of looking better to me, and yet it's going to need something else there, and I'm going to end up changing it. I guess one of the things that cut off was I added the little shine word up above under the balloons, and I glued down the Celebrate You with the banner. Here I'm adding a bunch of little hearts, and I decided that I'm not going to have really journaling. The sketch called for journaling right under the title. So I just sort of filled in the white space between the banner and the Celebrate with a couple of hearts. The rest of the hearts I'm placing scattered about. I'm not really thinking too much about making clusters. It's really a scattered layout. Now remember how I said I wanted to bring in blue tones? Instead of splatters, what I ended up doing was using the two tiny aqua heart stickers and then grabbing another punch. This is a Fisker's heart punch. Getting a couple of the extra stickers that were in an aqua color that I thought I could spare because I didn't think I was going to use. And I'm punching out little tiny hearts. I use a Post-it to hold the sticker so I can hold it in my hand and punch. Otherwise, you can't get the sticker in when it's too small or it's too sticky. The Post-it trick works really well. Aha, and here's where I decide that I don't like that tab at all. Originally, when I was trying some other things in that area, I didn't want to put a sentiment vertically. So I decided finally just to go ahead and put one horizontally, and I'll fill in the space. Did a little bit more splattering, it still didn't come out the way I wanted. So to fill in the other blank right under the sticker, I put another sequin on there. Oh, I think off camera, put a final sequin on the other side of that middle photo. There's a blank space there, and I put another gold sequin there. So I did say I didn't have journaling, and yet I wanted to write down dates and age of my daughter. I went through my grave pens, decided that the Copic fine liner that I have, it's a warmer gray, matched really well with the lines on that geometric print and the gold lines on all the stickers. And I dithered and dathered and tried out things on vellum. In the end, I'm like, screw it, just write something down. It doesn't matter. And I'm not super happy with how it came out, but I got her dates, and that's fine. Looking back now, maybe I could have fit it in between the Celebrate You and the banner, or maybe in between the little peaks of the banner, but I just didn't want to mess with that area. I'm slowing down so you can see all the details in real time. And yep, there's one sequin missing. It'll be in the middle of the whole layout. And also I hadn't noticed that the top strip of paper had fallen down a little bit, so I'm going to adjust that before the photos. Let's take a look at the sketch again. And here are the still photos. These are not my favorite photos ever. They came out so poorly. I could not get the camera to work with my lighting. I couldn't get natural light this time. But hopefully you can still see the details pretty well. Don't forget, I have all the information down below for any products I've used that I can link to. I have the link to Susanna's video. This is part of a series we do where we take a sketch and interpret it 2 different sizes, so go check out what she did this month. Please give me a thumbs up if this process video has given you some value, and subscribe if you haven't done that. Hit the notification button so you know next time we bring out one of these videos on the series. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you here next time.